Welcome everybody to welcome everyone to proposal writing 2. And if you've come today with certain questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them, at the breaks for questions or at the end of the presentation. If there's something you wanted to inquire about that is not covered in depth, please feel free to, ask your questions. Thank you. And let's get started. Just a little bit about myself. For those of you who haven't taken any of my classes, I've actually been teaching for Maryland Apex Accelerator for, almost 12 years now. And I teach a number of classes. And if you would like, please join me in future classes that I teach. But, I've been in federal government contracting pretty much all of my career. I started working with an 8A firm after I graduated college, and that particular company grew to over 30 to really over 100 million at one point in revenue. And I was privileged to be in a position of after being the first employee, to kind of work in every area of that business. Started out in HR and moved around, learning each function of the company, accounting, business development, managed projects, and marketing, the whole gamut of things. And that's what makes me who I am today, with a vast knowledge of operating small businesses and in the federal contracting realm. I also am familiar with state and local proposals and cost and pricing. So, do feel comfortable knowing that the information provided, is my experiences and what's going on today in the federal government realm. Our agenda for today is as follows. We're going to cover the solicitation document review, talk a little bit about the bid, no bid process. And we also cover how to organize your proposal team and define roles and responsibilities. We're going to discuss proposal outline and the RFP analysis process, proposal writing process, and proposal sections. And in addition, we're going to cover the proposal library development and boilerplate information. All right, let's get started. Okay, and the first class I do on proposal writing, it's sort of an introduction, and we kind of go through everything. This part 2 is going to cover pretty much the inside workings on how you build your team, but we're also going to reemphasize some of the things that was covered in the first class that I teach. Okay, so let's start with the beginning, which you guys are doing business with the government, and you're marketing and trying to locate leads to solicitations to respond to build your business. One of the most important things you're going to do in that process is make a bid, no bid analysis and a decision to go ahead and bid that. And I urge you, if you don't already do that in your organizations, to follow this process, because it's so important that, money is not wasted, jumping out and bidding a solicitation, and you have not thoroughly, went through the pros and cons of, attempting this particular bid. So let's kind of look at the steps to the bid, no bid analysis. when you receive a solicitation or a colleague refers you to one, you know, don't just take their word that your company can accomplish that particular contract on your own or at all. I think everyone should sit down if you have other company members that you want to include in that decision making or hire a consultant to help you make those decisions. You need to, look at these things, your probability of success. Okay. How likely am I to be awarded this contract according to your background, the things you've done that you know uh, make up your past performance background. So, first of all, you have to pretty much like read the solicitation and weigh it against who you are as a company and what you can bring to the table for the government. So, what is your probability of success? Um, the next thing you should look at is your competitive environment, because that helps you determine what your probability of success would be. As you look at those around you who are competing against you for this particular, procurement, what are the likelihoods that, they could beat you out? And what special niche do you have that you could bring that will make you stand out among that competition? Okay. You also would be looking at your potential profitability and revenue value. Now, that's very important because that's what you're doing. You're in business to make money. So, please don't jump into a solicitation to have a contract for the sake of having a contract if you're not making money. Okay. So make sure that that's included in your analysis. Also, look at what you have in-house already that you could be used to help develop your proposal response. Those of you who are already in business and have already bid on things, kind of look at, what you have. And we'll talk more about boilerplate information later, which is in-house content, and also the expertise of your team they bring to the table for your organization that can help grow your company. Okay. And last but not least, the delivery schedule. It's very important that you have enough time to do a good proposal response. I've lived through it all through my career. Um, and what you do learn is that when you don't win and you just go on to the next proposal and don't take time to recap and go through what went wrong, then you're not making your process better. So this is something that you should do each time. Okay. And one of the main things too is when you get that solicitation is how much time do I have to prepare my bid? So the delivery schedule is all important. Yes, that there are times when you get a solicitation and many times where it's extended because of the questions and answers you ask to the government that would help make your bid better. That government has to respond to every question asked. So a lot of times the government will extend the due date. But if that timeline is very short for you and you don't have the, bandwidth at the time to actually put a compliant proposal out, then, you should think twice about pursuing that particular bid. So, this is the upfront work that you would do before you just jump in and start doing it. In the organizations I work with, I encourage them to have regular no bid meetings, as either their marketing staff or they get notified of solicitations from the different various databases they have out there, like the SAM.gov site now that um, lists upcoming procurements. You know, they are doing it on a regular basis, like at least monthly at a minimum, to see what's out there because most companies have people constantly looking, like, they hire people to do that, or it's a function of someone else's job in your organization. So they are constantly looking for solicitations that come out. Okay. So delivery schedule is very important. Don't try to squeeze a proposal that would take a month to develop into 2 weeks or a week. Okay. So, let's be practical as you go out, and, keep looking, and the right solicitation for you and your company will show up. Okay. All right. The proposal team. Okay. Now, unless you're a one-man band company, and even if you are, at a certain point, you have to engage certain subject matter experts, or help with developing that proposal, especially if you're proposing a number of people who will be supporting you on this contract when you win. Then I encourage you to add them to your proposal team to help develop a compliant winning proposal. Okay. So depending on your size of your company and the requirement, your proposal team could be comprised of 1 to several dozen members. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. So these are some of the people that you could include on your proposal team. Team members may include a lead proposal manager or coordinator. And I think that's important because, I've coordinated many proposals, and also been a writer. And sometimes when you're doing a twofold job like that, your head's in the sand and you miss things. And if every bid you do should be important to your organization because you're trying to grow, okay? And you want to make sure that, you know, everyone pays attention to uh, the solicitation changes, uh, that they are on task, because each proposal has a deadline, and you want to make sure that everything's done where you're able to get your proposal reviews in, make a proposal better, and make sure that it's completely compliant to the requirements of the government. So the lead person is a person that I believe is imperative to a good win, okay? So make sure you have someone who's not actively involved with writing to help and lead the team on crafting that proposal response. You may also need tech writers and subject matter experts. And if you already, you know, working on contracts, either on a state, local, or federal level, you're going to have those individuals in your organization already that you should call upon. And I know some people say, well, they're working on a project, I don't want to bother them. I said, but um, you want to make your company the place where people want to feel comfortable and work at and grow with. And, being a part of the proposal team, is something that a lot of people don't think about, but they have expertise you would need in a lot of cases where, their input will be valuable. Um, when I was coming up in proposal writing, we would task our project managers at a minimum to be a part of the team. But there may be other support staff that can bring some value add to your response. You know, um, so I'd like to take the approach where you would say, hey, let's, if you take someone takes a job with you and they're an expert in their field, or done well in their job, and they know the areas that you're qualified to perform, you know, um, come on and grow with me, and make sure that they understand, they have to do their 9 to 5, but if you can fit them into that team and get some input, or just get some fillers or information from them during their busy work days, that's worth it, you know. So You can find tech writers in your company, people who can write, or you have to go out and get some consultants to help make that work. Okay, then do it. It's worth it. Okay. Um, in addition, you're going to need at a minimum support staff. If you have an administrative assistant or executive assistant who's is good at word processing and graphics and putting together proposals, or who's capable of it, then utilize those individuals. It's only going to make your internal team stronger to constantly look at how you can make your processes better. Okay. Okay, so you got your team together. So your proposal schedule and task assignments. And as I mentioned earlier, getting that proposal done and compliant and outdoor on time is imperative. You know, throughout my career, I started out right out of college into this federal contracting realm. And once you miss a deadline, not getting proposals submitted on time, your next objective in every proposal you do is to make sure you schedule the proposal due dates for different parts of the proposal so that everything comes together in enough time to get it in. Okay? The schedule should note each proposal task, listing the responsible person or group that's producing their work, and the due date. Okay. This process outlines the critical steps and tasks and establishes a time frame for each. And you have to, that's one thing that's good about a coordinator, because they help the writers and other people working on the proposal stay on task. Okay. And that may mean that excuse me, that there are progress meetings. Initially it may not be as often, but before a proposal is due, sometimes we meet almost daily, or every other day, or you set your timeline and say, okay, I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 days to come up with some content. We're gonna meet again. So you need those checks and balances in place to make sure that everybody stays on track. And you can't just give them an assignment and come back a few days before it's due and say, okay, give me this stuff, I'm going to put it together and send it out. In order to win, you have to comply with all the requirements of the solicitation at a minimum. Okay. So if you don't have those things in order, please work on that. In addition, you're going to make sure that all of the people a part of your proposal team have, been a part of that RFP analysis. The experts that you bring on from your organization, and consultants, and other employees who may be helping out. This is the most important task, and it will enable you to develop a unique approach which can make your proposal stand out from the competitors. Okay. Yeah, those initial meetings where you sit down and go like, okay, we decided to work on this. So now what are we going to offer the government that's going to really, really stand out to them and make us be one of the considered firms for award? Okay. So you're going to look at it, and then if you have the SMEs available, then they can provide their input and help craft that plan that's going to give you that win. So the analysis is imperative as well, part of this whole process. And everybody should come to the table being thoroughly knowledgeable with the requirements of the solicitation. And you should make that be known when you set that meeting up, that when you come, have already know what the solicitation is asking for, so that the meeting is fruitful and everybody can really dissect these various sections and bring value adds that will help develop this winning proposal. With that, it includes your program design. Like, what is your solution? You know, from the initial meeting, you should leave that meeting with your planned solution. And so developing your program design or your technical solution is what your aim is after that. During this process, you will pinpoint exactly what you will do for the client and include how you will do it, who you will do it with, which is your personnel or consultants that you plan to put on this particular contract, and what you will need to fulfill the requirement. Okay. Producing the proposal is the next step. Okay. So let's look at a basic proposal outline. Uh, title pages and cover letter and all of that, usually that's kind of done at the end. But when you first get started and working on a proposal, you're gonna, talk about the various sections and who's gonna be writing what. And you make your writing assignments, and you're gonna decide also how you can portray what you need to say, you know, either through text or using charts, graphs, and acronyms. A lot of RFPs, especially in the DoD realm, they'll tell you that that's a part of one of the proposal requirements is to provide an acronym list of any jargon that you may use, and you kind of use um, the acronyms for in your writing. Make sure that even if you don't have an acronym list, that during your writing, you're going to define what those acronyms mean. You can't assume that the government's going to understand the terminologies you use, and especially if you have really, really uh, uh, people who don't write all the time, I have to say. And so they may assume that the writer knows what they want because they're asking for it, but that's not true. And then within the government, the person reviewing the bid is not necessarily the person that's going to be performing the work. So you want to make sure the reviewers fully understand what you're saying. So you can't talk a lot of jargon in your areas of expertise without defining those areas, okay? So, and it makes it an easier read for people when they understand what you're talking about, okay? So you have your graphs and acronyms, and also list of charts. Now, the following sections are different sections that could be a part of the proposal response. Always follow section L instructions, though, from the solicitation to find what the government is requiring for your proposal response and base it on that. But we're going to go over some items that could be a part of that list that the government's asking for. Okay. So, an executive summary, for instance. This is a introduction section of the proposal where you introduce the company to the company to the government, and you quickly define what your qualifications are and why they should choose you for this contract. What makes you stand out, who you've done work with, okay? Normally the executive summary is generally the shortest part of the proposal. It's only no more than a couple of pages or a page and a half, where you definitely summarize your experience. A lot of times this is where the company would introduce the program or project manager and kind of summarize who they are and their expertise. So, make sure that, you're staying on target and keeping it short and sweet. You're going to talk about the project manager again in your management section. So, but give them an introduction of what you bring to the table. and encourage them, hey, this is going to cause them to want to keep reading, right? So, you know, do that. Make a good executive summary. And generally, the person who does the executive summary is either the CEO or president or project manager of that division that you know, where this type of work is being performed in your company already. So, you know, they bring that heartfelt desire to really uh, do work for the government in that arena and to do a good job for them. If not, you know, you can have members of the team craft it and let your company management review it to make sure that they're getting their message across. Okay. The next step, understanding the requirement and analysis of the client situation. Now, hopefully in your kickoff meeting, you've already discussed, you know, what the government is asking for, but you also should do a little research on the agency. And hopefully you've already had some insight into that agency that you're bidding for, uh, what their mission is, what their vision is, what their goals for the fiscal year that you're bidding in. You know, you can go online or go to the website of that government agency and kind of get a good idea of just what they do, you know, for the the government and what their program is doing and what the importance of that program is. Okay, so if you thoroughly understand their requirement, then your response is going to be right on target. Okay, um, I mentioned earlier that you know each solicitation gives you a timeline as to ask questions. So while you're going through the proposal document, you know, before you know you start writing in depth, you know, jot down any questions you have and make sure you meet that deadline for questions and answers so that you can get feedback from the agencies on that particular question so that you can move forward and make sure that you're answering the mail the way the government would like it. You know, keep in mind that, you know, people in the government aren't perfect. And a lot of times they put solicitations out in a rush and they don't really thoroughly um, explain things or give you the right, or not necessarily the right information, but in-depth information that would help you build a winning proposal. So please do ask questions. You know, the old saying, there's no such thing as a dumb question. A lot of times you just need clarification. So make sure that you're getting the RFP or solicitation in a timely manner so that you don't miss that question and answer period. Because if you're behind the questions and answers and you don't have a chance to ask any questions, you're only relying on the modifications that come out where they're presenting the questions and answers to everyone who put them in or everyone are bidding. So you don't get a chance to ask your question. And you want to be in front of that solicitation and ready to jump on it when it comes out and start working. So, you know, do participate in questions and answers. There is no dumb question, so people would say, you know, or just phrase it as clarification. You know, don't make assumptions because when, you know, that's not good. You need to have a, you know, imperative answer to these things so that you know what you know when you start writing about it. Continuing with producing the proposal. Okay, after you've done the executive summary and done your introduction, then you're gonna start working on your program design. And this is your proposed solution. Again, you've already discussed this with your team, what your pros and cons are, and hopefully you have more pros and your niche or how this unique solution you're going to be providing to this particular government agency and you're on the road. So you take your approach and you develop your technical approach next. This is specific aspects of your program design. Okay. Um, so depending on the type of services you're providing, could be IT, could be administrative services or help desk, you know, um, you're going to develop that solution to the government. It could be working on government site or working at your facility. So you're going to be uh, talking about how that's all going to happen when you win this proposal. And of course, the subject matter expert um, experience that can help your proposal stand out is going to be invaluable. So you're going to be melding that solution into your proposal development. Um, Management approach. Okay, this is a very important area here, and the government looks for that. They're looking for contractors who can perform their contracts on their own with minimum direction from the government, so that they want to know, well, how are you going to manage this work? How are you going to ensure me that you're going to get it done the way you stated in the contract that was awarded to you? Okay, so that's really the responsibility of the management personnel to make sure that everything's working together for good and that you're going to come out with flying colors and with good references on doing this work. Okay, so how will you manage the program? And hey, who do I need around me to make this work? Okay, so you got to look at your management team. If there are other people that will be managing people, if it's program office, and then you have managers working under your program manager, then you need to define who those individuals are and, kind of downline how that the checks and balances within your organization is going to do to manage this project. So, that would happen each time when, each proposal you do. And as you grow, you may have, you know, uh, several people on your proposal team and several managers that you're going to, propose, you know, as you grow. What about staffing when you talk about people around that manager that's going to help them do a good job? Okay, are you proposing people who are currently working with you, or are you going out and you're um, sourcing for new individuals to join your team to perform on this contract? um, Personnel and staffing, they're the lifeblood of your organization. Okay. You notice when I first started working in the industry in government contracting, we used to talk about personnel as a department, but now, as time has gone on, they refer to our personnel and employees as human capital. Okay. People who help you grow your company is your company's human capital. And you need to prove to the government that you're able to hire and attract and retain those individuals, okay? That's why I always use the terminology, come and grow with us, okay? You know, this is invaluable. There are people, that you're going to invest in so that they can stay with you and grow with you. And so you have to make sure you take care of that work environment that is conducive to helping people grow, helping them with training, keeping them state of the art, all that kind of thing. So, a lot of times, the government will ask you to describe how you're going to retain the people that you acquire to work on that particular contract. So, you have to be prepared to, think outside of the box. Okay. Um, People are of utmost importance. They will also tell you in Section L of instructions to the RFP, who the government designates as the positions that are considered key on that particular contract. And normally they ask for resumes for those individuals. So, HR has to work hand in hand with you while you're working on this contract proposal, and help you with those resumes, putting ads out in a timely manner, having a chance to chat with the people who are key, seeing their availability. And many times the government will also ask for letters of intent, just to ensure that the expertise you've brought in is truly available and has discussed with you that they're going to start working once that contract's awarded. So, look out for those things and be prepared. Okay. Another important factor in this whole thing is your past performance. That's one of the things you think about when you're doing your bid, no bid considerations in the beginning, right? It's also a reason why you would go out and acquire a subcontractor or a partner to do this work, right? Because, if you can't put the whole puzzle together and you're missing a piece, you need to go find one. And so that's where you would be constantly engaging other companies with similar backgrounds or complementary expertise that could help you fulfill a requirement on your proposal that you don't have in-house or have not been able to ascertain through normal recruitment efforts. So make sure that, you're able to, again, have people can help find those individuals in a timely manner and obtain all of the, documentation you need from them that needs to be included in your past performance. The government will tell you how many past performance citations you have to include in your proposal response. And, that's one thing you look at, do I have, adequate past performance when you're considering to bid? If you don't, you may decide, well, I don't have it. And if you can't find anybody to complement that, you may decide not to no bid. But if you're in it and you have your team together and you know who brings to bear those past performance citations, please do so. Okay. Last but not least, you can sometimes add, or well, generally you can add appendices to your proposals. However, please be aware that the government puts page limitations on the proposal. Okay, so in section L, it'll define all of those things, and if you don't see it in section L, then make sure that's a question you ask to the government. So an appendix can be used to incorporate additional information that you want the government to look at. Now, when you take it upon yourself to add an appendix and add additional information, it's not a guarantee that the government's going to look at it. But I can guarantee you, if they like what your base proposal is saying and your pricing is right, they're going to take a look at your appendices, okay? So sometimes it is good. It could be a value add to add an appendix, okay? And the appendix is not counted against your page count, okay? So if they say we have 30 pages to tell your solution or to write or craft your solution, and then you add an appendix with additional information. One thing that I always say that might help you is, like, let's say you're doing your response, and they're asking for your quality management plan, and you have a really in-depth quality management plan, and it's several pages, and within your proposal you could summarize it so that you can stay within your page count, and then include a full-blown copy in your appendices. So therefore, it's there if the government wants to look at the complete document, And, they may choose not to. They may be satisfied with your summary, but at least you did your due diligence to give them, a little more than what they asked for. Okay. So let's talk about putting it on paper. Okay, let's discuss each proposal section. And I know I've been probably spilling the beans on a lot of this already, so we'll just reiterate it and keep going. Are there any questions before we get into this part?
Hi, Arlene. Thanks for that. Great so far. And just like to welcome everybody who joined us since we started, and to let you know that you can type out your questions in the chat box. So yeah, we're getting a couple of questions coming in. One of them is, this is a great presentation, and I'm curious if there are courses that offer a deeper understanding on how to write a proposal and learning the Shipley process. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've worked with Shipley. I have a lot of their books, and a lot of what I say is kind of based on their processes. They do put out books you can get, and you can go directly to Shipley and get training. Of course, it's cost for that. Here at PTAC is no charge to our participants. They do have good processes. Okay. So, you may take it upon yourself to go either obtain a book and, kind of read and use it as a reference manual, or, go ahead and take Shipley training. A lot of people who take the training, they're looking to be employed as proposal writers. So, it's, your decision, but, Shipley is a good resource.
Okay, thanks. The next question is, can I use a Gmail, Yahoo, or Hotmail? Or will it be kicked back as undeliverable on an RFP submission as a subcontractor? This is somebody who is in the process of getting a new website and company email.
You can use your Gmail. Okay, you got to start from somewhere, right? Okay. I mean, even if you're if you're rebuilding a website or whatever, as long as you have a valid email where you can get that information from, then you can utilize those things. But as soon as you can get your website up and get an email with your company name, or try to incorporate your company name in your Gmail account. Okay, you could put your proposed company's name at gmail.com. Okay, I've seen that a lot from a lot of companies. So, consider doing that, as long as when the government looks at your proposal, they'll see a company representation versus a person's personal email. Okay, so, it's free to get a Gmail account. You can do one, like my company's name is AW Enterprises at gmail.com. Okay, so, just a suggestion.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep on going, guys. Oops. Apologize for that. Okay, let's talk about the executive summary, the first section of the proposal. Like I said, it's sort of akin to an introduction. And if you don't have enough page limitation, or the government didn't ask for it, so you're just going in and you're drafting your proposal document, start in with similar information as an introduction, okay? But these are just some major things that can be included in your executive summary. You need to demonstrate your knowledge of the client's problem, set the benefit of your company's solution over the solution of your competitors. And you need to educate the client about your company's products, staff, and resources. And also reinforce the client's benefit by having your firm do the job. Okay, so that's short and sweet, like I mentioned earlier, but try to incorporate these 4 areas, okay? It's going to be important. It's the first thing that they're going to look at when they start reviewing Or, in actuality, the government kind of breaks your proposal apart into different sections, and it's reviewed by different staff members in most cases. And so they all come out together to grade your proposal and see, where you come with your proposal submission, and as it relates to the award. Um, so make sure that, you do a good, solid executive summary. The second part of the proposal response is your technical approach. Now, when I say technical, this is like technical writing, so it doesn't have to be something IT, okay? It could be an administrative section that, this is how you're going to do what the government needs to be done. Describe in details your solution, okay? From reading this section, the client should be able to determine if you have met the requirements of the solicitation or RFP, okay? That's why I say incorporate that via reviews when you're working on this proposal, to make sure you stay on track and follow the instructions, okay? Emphasize how the solution is tailor-made for the client's need. Okay, that's what helps give the government that feel, that warm and fuzzy feel, that you're the one for them, that you're the one that they need to select. Okay. Make sure you define key terms and technical jargon. We talked about that earlier. I once reviewed a proposal. Well, I was working with them, kind of being the coordinator, and reviewing the sections to make sure they were on track. And I had, I think it was for the Veterans Administration. It was vets bid that was coming out. And, when the client that I had at that time was into supply management. And the technical people were using all this jargon, and I know proposal writing, and and certain things, but that wasn't one of the things that I felt I had expertise in. And I kind of caught the fact that they were writing in jargon, a lot of, acronyms, but they had not defined them. So it was like reading something in a foreign language to me. And I had to go back and say, I'm sorry, guys, you got to define what you're saying. There's no guarantee that the reviewers are going to understand this. And it took a couple of times, kind of like reminding them of that, for them to go back and really, really give me the writing and definitions of everything that they needed. So, that's very important. Because like I say, when you're writing, sometimes, you're rushing, you got other things to do, and you're trying to get done, and you try to write in code. But, you need to be spelling out this to the government, okay? Because, you want to make sure you get that point across. Okay. The management approach, that's the third section. And like we talked about earlier, when we went through the outline, these are things that you should consider. The section should be a description of your management plan and include how will the project be managed? Okay. The management plan is the section that you would actually put your organization chart in, that would show how this project is going to fit into your organization management, from corporate office down to the line employees that you're going to be bringing on for that contract. So, kind of keep that in mind, and, kind of list how the management's going to communicate with the government as well in your organization chart. All right. Who will lead the project? Again, this is where you go in depth on your project management and key personnel that you're proposing. Who will be on the management team? Again, key people, other people that you're proposing to help to perform on this contract, who will be supporting various areas of getting the requirements done. What responsibility will each team member have? Okay. Again, you can use charts and graphs to do that, to explain to the government, especially with page limitations. You have to always be cognizant of that. Usually when we put in proposals together, you have several drafts, and initially you do a document that kind of throws everything in there, and then you kind of chip away at getting within that page limit that the government has sent, and making sure you only put valuable information in, and or rewording it. So again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you can do it in a graphic, do so to save page limit, pages. And so that if you submit more pages than the government has asked for, they have a right not to even read your response. Don't put yourself in those situations. Make sure you follow instructions. Okay. Again, and last but not least, how will your management team and the client interact? That can be done in a graphics. It can also be done on the actual org chart, okay, where you could show your staff, the corporate staff, and how the communication goes to the government contract officer representative, and back up to the contracting office, and how the corporate office communicates with the contracting officer as well. Okay. You should indicate how you will manage the project by addressing the following: how your project will be implemented, monitored, and maintained. Okay. That's the whole management process right there. And a lot of times you have to even tell the government how you're going to implement that project, by how you're going to phase your services in. Sometimes you're bidding on requirements that have incumbent, which means in a company currently performing that work that's being rebid, and you're trying to do this, you're doing this proposal to unseat that incumbent contractor. Okay. So you have to work together with that contractor. If you should win on phasing your company into that contract, and the incumbent contractor is going to be working with you over a period of time to help transfer that intellectual knowledge that they have about the day-to-day operations of that particular contract. So that's that implementation of how you're going to go in, especially work on site. You really have to work closely with the incumbent to get that knowledge to move forward. And even if you proposed ways of changing what's going on currently, it's good to know what's being done now. And that's really not disclosed in depth until you win the contract, and you're actually performing, started the contract. Also, you're going to be talking about how your supervisors and management is going to monitor the performance of the work being done by your employees, and how you're going to maintain that process. Okay. And that also includes, how you're going to communicate that information to the government, and through your monthly or bi-weekly meetings that you're going to be having throughout the life of the contract, stuff like that. How the project will be staffed, and the company methods to retain and attract employees. Okay. Again, that's really, really important. Okay. It's not enough just to say, well, I've got the people. Well, the government will sometimes, you'll see that in the instructions, they want to know in depthly about how you're what programs you have to put in place that's gonna help you be staffed up on time, and how you're gonna provide benefits that are gonna want the employees to stay around throughout the life of the contract at a minimum, okay? And how you're going to attract new employees. So you may have some things that you're, going to think about, providing for your employees, which might include benefits like health insurance and 401ks, plans, stuff that will make them feel secure throughout, and want to hang around. Competitive salary increases, stuff like that. And that's important even when you're pricing your proposal. Like they want to know how you're going to escalate the salaries to the people you propose and stuff like that. So, you don't talk about costing stuff in the technical, but that's things that you need to consider overall. So again, these methods are important. And you know, if you're actively bidding on on proposals, you need to make sure that you have a person, recruiter or HR that's going to constantly be looking for the types of people you need to build your company, and have a backlog so that as you work on proposals, those resumes are available, you know, to scan to see if their availability meets the timeline of the proposals you do, and if when you win, and other resources that are available to help you staff up quickly when should you be awarded, and some of the people who may have signed up to work with you are not available, so that you can be fully staffed the way you promise it in the proposal. Okay, because the government's looking for you to perform according to that proposal you submitted. All right. Corporate resources that will support overall project management. Okay. So a lot of companies have an individual who's like an operations director who they help management kind of manage the whole process, or they're that person for the corporate office who goes around to all the project sites and makes sure that operations are being done adequately, that they have no major issues, and they will then bring it back to the corporate office to help solve any issues that may arise, okay, or potential issues. The key is to prevent things from becoming an issue or a problem, and that the government is aware of that. Okay, so that's what good managers do. Make sure that things or problems are resolved before they even become an issue or a concern for the government. And that's why they do go out and hire contractors to work for them. Okay, they're not looking for you to run to them with every problem. So management is there to resolve those issues, or help the government work through things that are potentially threatening to the performance of that work as the contract's being performed. Okay, and with that, I look at risk management. you know um, Risk is really about the type of contracts that the government is awarding to our companies. Okay, um, if you are in the bidding arena presently, you notice different types of contracts come out. You have the firm fixed price, and you have the time and materials. Um, you have the indefinite quantity. Uh, you know, task order type contracts. Um, but one thing for sure, keep in mind is that the most risk to you as a contractor is the firm fixed price contract. Why? Because government's asking you to perform this work based on a firm fixed price, monthly price, okay, that cannot be adjusted unless the government has to adjust the pricing. Okay, you as a contractor can't come back and say, oh, I didn't bid this cost correctly, and I didn't think about that, and didn't think about this, and I'm having cost overruns. That's not the government's problem. When you submit a proposal that's firm fixed price, you're going to be held to those prices throughout the life of the contract. So, unless the government comes back and makes a change, and it's something that they decide to do, then it's going to work. But otherwise, it's on you to do your due diligence and make sure that all costs are included in that firm fixed price when you submit your proposal. And saying that, because pricing doesn't go into the technical, but the two should marry each other. Can't have a cost proposal that's saying pricing in one way, but not including all of the things that you're promising the government in your technical volume. That's why the pricing person should always be a part of your technical proposal team as well, and sit at that table with everybody when you're reviewing to make sure the writers haven't incorporated some freebies that um, should be included, or things that should be included in the indirect rates and stuff like that. Make sure that whoever's doing that pricing is aware of how you're proposing that solution. Is really, really important, because it could cause you to lose money in the long run, and you're not in business to lose money. Okay, so you see, this whole process is just all important. When you proposals are serious business, this is a lifeblood of your company, and it's an art to it. It's a craft, and you have to put those things in place in your organization with the checks and balances to make sure each time you're bidding, you may not win each time you bid, and you may not initially win, but make sure that when you bid, each time you do your lessons learned and come back and don't make that happen again. Like they said, don't keep doing the same thing knowing that you're going to get the same result. Make sure you make it better, and each time better and better. And as the world changes and the requirements change, all of those things will change with it, and new processes and procedures are coming out. Nothing is constant in life but change. And you want to cut down on that risk that you're going to have. Um, so make sure you look at the type of contract you have, and that should help you craft that approach, you know, to information gathering on what it means to your organization and what it means to the government. Okay, and make sure that you're looking out for your organization, that you're able to perform adequately. And I use this example of a proposal I did for Aberdeen Proving Ground. That was an organization that built army trucks, and they had to deliver so many trucks per year, and um, they forgot to include the screws for the truck, a particular screw, not all the screws. Okay, and they didn't price it in their submission, and they actually won the bid. And then they realized that they had left out this particular screw that was very, very important to building the trucks. But it was a fixed price, firm fixed price. And they had to go back and get lines of credit to help make that work. And of course, that helped eat into their profit margin, because they had to go get another bill to get the money to pay for that the screw over the number of screws for all the trucks they had to do over the life of the contract, which ended up being 5 years period of performance. So that's an example of what can go wrong if you don't thoroughly think through um, everything that you put in that proposal and promise the government. Okay. And I know you get aggressive sometime writing, and you want to, give them a little bit of perks here and there, but just think that through. And if you do, make sure that, the other side, the costing side, matches that, and that the pricing is realistic according to the solutions that you're crafting on the technical side. Okay, also included in the management plan is the project scheduling, goals, and timelines. Each proposal has some type of a deliverable, okay? And your government is going to give you timelines, or you'll have that bandwidth to set the timelines for those deliverables. And if you say that in your proposal, then that's what you need to deliver. Keep in mind that your proposal response, okay, becomes a part of that contract. So if the RFP is asking for something and you decide to add on some things to that to put yourself in a more competitive, limelight for the government, then you have to adhere to what you said. That becomes the standard for the performance of your contract. One example again I use, one bid I did one time was about, we had a project manager and it was a key person. And that manager stayed with the contract for about 2 years and then he decided to move on. We had to replace that project manager. And during that time, I was performing as an HR person and a contracts administrator. And we went back to the original solicitation and to the requirements for the project manager and had totally forgot the fact that we provided the government with a person with a PMP certification as a value add. We found a new person, but we didn't get a PMP, and we sent that resume in for approval, and they came back and said, "Oh, no, no, no. You need to give me the same caliber of individual you originally bid." Okay. So keep in mind that if you add value adds to things like personnel qualifications, especially for key people, you need to replace that individual with somebody of the same caliber. Okay, and that's a general rule. So keep that in mind as well. Again, the managers are responsible for, making sure that you meet all of your goals and deadlines. They're meeting constantly with the government and making sure that the status is updated on a regular basis and that you're on target. If there are any issues coming up that need to be addressed to make sure that those goals and timelines are met, then you need to implement those things, okay? Staff qualifications and training, keeping employees state of the art. That's also one thing important, okay? You're gonna make sure that as things change in the organization, people are getting updated training to accommodate those changes, and or if people are hired who have certain certifications and the government wanted those certifications, or you use that as a basis of your niche, we have certified employees we're giving you, then you make sure that those employees have the resources to keep those certifications up to date, and that they are state of art in all of the services and products that they're providing to the government. Okay. That's crucial. So again, that other arm, that other resource from corporate office, the HR department can help you with that part. And so you talk about that in management, the how all of those things, those resources from the corporate office that they filter down to your contract is of utmost importance. So that's things that you should include in the management plan to let the government feel comfortable that you are the right contractor. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you've also included a subcontractor on your bid with you, then this is where you would talk about that subcontractor. This is where you would introduce the subcontractor and their qualifications to fulfill their part of the proposal that or contract that they're going to fulfill. And how are you as the prime contractor going to manage that subcontractor? Okay. Any subcontractor staff performing on your contract should be transparent. Okay. You as the prime contractor, you are managing this entire contract. You are the contractor. You are going to only talk about your team, which includes a subcontractor company. Okay. So make sure that that's clear and you don't show any like separate entity kind of things. Okay. You as the prime are responsible for this contract, not the subcontractor. So you need to manage that. Any staff performing on that contract from the subcontractors company will wear your company badge as the prime contractor. And, make sure that, yes, denote it. And then the org charts, that the management falls under your management. Okay, any issues that come up with the subcontractor are then communicated from your project manager or program manager to the subcontracting officials, and then they handle it that way, and it's kind of filtered across. All contracts or some solicitations that are out for bid usually includes a section that wants to talk about, quality assurance plan, even if it's just including it in your technical approach, how your checks and balances, how do you guarantee the government that they're getting quality service? What checks and balances go in place that, on a daily basis to make sure things are working the way you intended it from the beginning, okay? So having a quality assurance plan is another important section. I mean, everything works together for good here. So everything's important in really, reality. So let's say, hey, it's another important area to ensure deliverables are met in an efficient and effective management. I'm sorry. And within budget. Okay. You're not in this to help the government, overpay for services, and you want to make sure you're able to get paid, getting and gaining the profit you deserve out of these contract uh, agreements that you're setting up. Your contracts should be paying your company what you intend for the effort you're putting out. Okay, so you know it's not something you're doing for fun. You're doing it to grow, to gain income, to help people, keep them employed, things like that. Okay, so all of these things come into play, that all of the divisions within your company are helping support your bidding efforts, so that they're going to input what's going on. What are the compensations plans in your company? Okay, in the management plan, a lot of times the government asks you to describe your compensation plans for your management staff, or for all employees for that matter. So all of these things have to work together for good, making sure that all of those things are updated regularly and they're up to date, so that if the government, awards you, they know what they're getting for the money they're spending on your particular contract. And the management approach is imperative to that. All right, so just keep in mind, you should indicate how you will manage the project by these things we've talked about. All sections of the proposal response is important. Section M, which is the evaluation criteria that's listed in your solicitation. The government will show you how they're going to grade your bid, okay? And the percentages you get for having met all of the requirements and showing a compliance in each of those areas will give you the top number of points, okay? And that's what each company should be striving for. Like I said, you can't win it all, but each time you ought to know, of course, your company comes up as top notch when it comes to your technical responses, okay? So that's what your aim should be, and that's what you should strive as you grow, making each process better as you go along. We talked about key personnel, and again, those are the labor categories that the government deem as being mandatory for resume submission in your proposals responses. And these are the people that work hard to help make your project a success. The RFP will define which resumes are required for each proposal and should include also an overall staffing chart. And let me just tell you a little bit about resumes when you submit. It's good to always have a format that your company will follow that's uniform for all employees, okay, that you're going to put in that proposal. Do not take a resume off the street and submit it with all the information on the employees, you want to make sure that while you're working on your technical and you select people, that you have a person that's in charge of reformatting those resumes uniformly, okay? Um, Many times the government will tell you page limitations on resumes. Make sure you're following those guidelines. Um, but a lot of times you have the bandwidth to create the um, style of information for the resume submission yourself. Um, and as long as you stay within that page limitation, you're good. But generally, sometimes you might hear or see in the instructions that the government wants their resumes formatted in a certain format. So, make sure that when you first start working on that, that's something you should be trying to accomplish, is get those resumes you need that will, bring your proposal into full compliance, okay? Because we need people to keep moving and perform this contract. So they are your human capital, so we talked about earlier. Um, and, making sure that you constantly keep your resume pool of people up to date with their resumes, so that as you're bidding from one contract to the next upcoming solicitation that's coming down the road, that you have a resources you need to make sure that you can do a timely response and get your proposal submitted on time. Past performance, okay. And this section, has to do with um, work, similar work you've done throughout your career or as an employee with a companies, and or throughout the life of your organizations. Those of you who currently have companies who are performing work, you know, um, do you have past performance in the areas you're bidding on? Can you hire people who can fulfill those past performance requirements? You need to look at that, and that's something that's looked at in the beginning before you even decide to bid. So if you decide to bid, you should already have those resources or know how to obtain them before the due date of that proposal. But let's take a look at that. This section highlights your company's experience and strengths unique to the particular RFP requirement and should include the following. You need, as a must, you have to be able to contact your previous clients or current clients and get references. And the reference should include the organization's name, contact information, and address, phone, fax, and email address. Make sure references are valid. Okay. Have someone responsible on your team that's going to go out and check to make sure that the contact information is correct when you put it in your proposal. Okay. You're going to lose points if you do not have adequate past performance as requested by the RFP. So make sure that this process is being handled by someone, and double check doing your proposal reviews that all of these things are accurate and in place. Okay. Specific contact person for each client. Okay. Even if it's the same client and you're using the same COR or contracting office. Provide all necessary contact information for each reference. That goes for subcontractor references as well. Okay. That's the reason you bring in a subcontractor most times, is to help you fulfill the past performance criteria or perform a special section of that particular proposal or contract that you don't have internally in your company. All right. And you provide a short description or project responsibilities and deliverables that you have performed on that past performance. Okay. Provide complete summary of related past performance relative to the RFP. Okay. These have to be relative to the RFP. It's keywords. if you're bidding on help desk, don't put an administrative person in, okay, and try to make them fit. The government's looking for people with experience in that general area and people with past work performance in those areas. All right. And keep in mind, if you are a new company and you don't have any government work, you can take your previous work history and format it in the same format and present it as your past performance. Because if you've done that same work in your career, that is your past performance as well. And I'm happy to say the government will consider that, but make sure that it's formatted correctly and kind of use the same contact information and do a little write-up about what you actually did in that arena, and make sure that you have contact people that who can verify that you did in fact perform those services, or that you were an employee at that organization who did, you know, work in this particular area. Um, in your past performance citations, you should also include a dollar value of of the contract reference and the period of performance for each. Okay, so um, that's bottom line information that you need to include in that past performance. But most importantly is that the government is able to verify that your information is true and that that information is correct and up to date when you submit your proposals. Um, those points that you gain for having all the past performance that the government's asking for and being able to maximize that point system could be the difference between you winning and losing. Okay. Now you can win if you, let's say they ask for 4, you come up with 3, and the government will tell you in Section L how many past performance citations are necessary for each proposal. So, make sure you're aware of that when you do your reviews, that you're in compliance. You want to get the most points that you can because you want to be in that line with the other companies who come up on top technically. Okay. Generally you have to be um, proficient technically to be even considered, for the sometimes bids, they don't even look at the pricing until they look at your technical response. Okay. So this is the meat to growing your company, is having excellent proposals to the government. So if you don't make it, then it's only because your pricing wasn't quite there, but you've met all the other requirements. Okay. So, working on pricing is another class that I teach. So keep that in mind. But technically, you want to come up on top. So, your reputation as a company is going to always be at risk when you submit proposals. So you want to make sure you're putting out quality performance proposal responses each and every time. Okay. Regardless of the size of that bid. Okay. So be consistent, and when you can, improve on the process as you go. And like I said, change happens all the time, and pay attention to what other folks are doing. Kind of do your research and due diligence to kind of stay abreast of changes that come up in how the government does business and how your company is changing and growing and doing business, and be able to present your qualifications very well. All right. Now, as a part of past performance verification, government will sometimes issue questionnaires in the solicitation, okay, that are particular to that particular RFP. So, if you are required to have questionnaires submitted, you can't go back and take the response from a previous proposal and throw it in the proposal. Okay, you can't do that. You have to go back to your clients each time to get them to complete the questionnaires and submit them to the government. Um, it pays to stay in contact with your references, the people who constantly support you and give you references. And that kind of goes hand in hand. If you've had contracts, previous contracts, and you did a good job, they're going to be happy to provide you with past performance. And so, make sure if the person you directly supported leaves the organization and they're still available to give you a reference, stay in contact with them. Or if you had new people coming at government agency that are doing the same job, make sure that you introduce your company, that you might need past performance from time to time. Keep that door open, with communication, because you're going to always need somebody to vouch for that past performance. Okay, and make sure you follow all directions for the process as outlined in the RFP, Section L. Okay. Well, time for our review and question section. It's the end of our presentation. If anybody has any questions or needs information that I haven't covered today, please feel free to ask me now.
Thank you, Arlene. That was great. Yes, of course, we always have questions for your classes. So let me go through the chat box. And while I'm going through those, if you think of any, please start typing your questions out. Now is your opportunity to get Arlene's expertise. Okay, first one is, I'm a new business. Should I outsource somebody to write a professional technical writer or a firm when responding to a solicitation?
Okay, that's your company's choice, but you got into this business because of your expertise in a certain area. So if you do have some expertise that you can bring to the table that's going to help you win, you can outsource, but I think you should be actively involved in the reviews and sometimes even in the initial writing, and that your SMEs you bring in to help you do the proposal kind of verify that you're on the right track, that your solutions are good, and that it can be done, and help you craft that final winning proposal. So, I would engage some people to help, but I'll also stay actively participating on the performance of those people working for you and the outcome of that proposal. Okay.
Okay, thank you. What if I do not have a team? How do I handle the cost of acquiring a consultation? I'm asking because I will pay for the services rendered, but if I don't win the contract, I will lose that money. Is that just part of the business risk?
That's part of the business risk. Okay. No matter how qualified you think you are or that you are, okay, there are a lot of factors that could be why you don't win. It could be an incumbent that the government prefers to keep on board, because that happens a lot. So do your investigation before you even start a proposal of your chances for winning. Okay, and your risk shouldn't be more than 25%. Okay, you want to make sure you have a 75% chance of winning, and then bring everything you can to the table in that proposal that can, hey, make that 100%. But that's why the bid no bid decision is so important, because you want to look at all of the things that go into developing a compliant proposal and making sure you have all of those areas covered, and that increases your chance for winning. So when you decide to bid, just be sure that it's not a hit and miss. Just don't do a lot of proposals for the sake of that. Everybody has a budget. Small businesses, they can't afford to lose regularly. Okay, so make sure that if you can get up ahead of the solicitation, try to once you decide to be in a government business, go and try to put yourself in front of those agencies who buy what you sell. Try to get ahead of solicitation so that you can do your due diligence. Respond to requests for information notices that come out on the various procurement postings, like sam.gov. Look in there and see, are the government looking for companies like me? submit for those RFIs. I know I have a client actually who's very successful with winning contracts because they submitted good responses in their request for information. Okay, it's not a RFI. It's just the government looking for companies who are competent to do services they may want to procure. Okay, so when they send out those RFPs, you're in that number, and you've already given them a taste of what they might even get. So, you know, position yourself to be, you know, awarded, you know, or have a conversation with the clients before solicitation hits the street. Because once the solicitation hits, you can't get additional information about that requirement only, you know, unless you're asking questions and answers while you're preparing the bid. So, you know, get ahead of the solicitation. That's the key place to be for any company trying to do business with the government. Because like I said, you can't get face-to-face meetings or virtual meetings or anything at that time. It has to be done in writing. And anything that you ask at that point is going to come back and available to everybody else. Unlike if you're establishing relationships initially, you know, the government will know your name before you submit your bid. You know, so position yourself to be ahead of the solicitation if you can, okay?
Thank you. All right, so another question is, do you offer business coaching services on how to win government contracts?
Yes, I do. And actually, on the final slide, you'll see my contact information, and I'll flip to that, but we'll keep asking questions. Okay, so you can go to my website and sign up, you know, for consulting if you want. I do offer a free 10-minute, 15-minute, I'll say, consultation just to see if there's something you want to do with my company. So, you know, keep that in mind, that that's a resource you can have if you would like to.
Okay, it looks like they're all the questions. I don't see any other questions popping up. So I'd like to thank Arlene for a great presentation, and please do take her up on that fantastic offer for a free consultation. And I'd also like to remind you that your Maryland Apex Accelerator Counselor is here to assist you on all things government contracting. So please do get in touch with them. I've posted some links in the chat box there of our classes, previous recordings, and we also have a very useful GovCon roadmap. A lot of people come to us and they're not really sure where to start with self-educating themselves, and that takes you through some of the basics to help you get started. All right, so that's about all we have today. So thank you, Arlene. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and I'm going to send out the slides and a link to the replay, and we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining.